Faisal, hey man, I am so glad to have you on the show today. I'm excited to be able to talk to you.
It's a pleasure to be here, Curtis. Thank you.
Um, I was just gonna see. I was looking, online. You got a pretty crazy skill set. I was reading through some of your stuff that you got a master's degree from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School, and you've written a book. You've got one extraordinary life, and your expertise is in positive psychology, right? Helping
That's
people to
correct. Yes.
improve their
Yeah.
thought process, and that's exactly what our group of folks are looking for here. So I think this will be a cool conversation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Traditional psychology deals with what's wrong with people, fixing a weakness or developing or improving something that needs development. And while that's really, really important for us to develop as human beings, sometimes we lose sight of our strengths. What's working well with us? And positive psychology attempts to answer that question. Well, if we were to identify the strengths of a person, what is working well with them in such a manner that then we can capitalize on them and use more of them, then you would develop differently. So in addition to focusing on weaknesses, develop on strengths and you thrive and flourish in life. That's the premise of it. So it's a really exciting scientific field from psychology.
And what made you get into that? I mean, you've got just talking to you on the phone. You've got, I mean, on the Zoom call here, you've got a really, positive, just
Yeah.
uplifting. You're a fun guy to talk to. But
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And, I could say the same for you as well. And you have quite the remarkable story yourself. So I was in the corporate world. I was in corporate finance and technology. And, when I started my career, I thought, I'm going to consult. So I started with consulting. Then I went into corporate finance and technology. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make it to the top rung of the corporate ladder and I'm going to be successful. And that's what I vied for. And that's what I worked really hard to achieve. And by many standards, I did achieve that. But two things happened, Curtis. Number one, I think I worked a little too hard. I was passionate about my job, but sometimes you can be too passionate. And then, it takes you a while to realize that maybe you're being too passionate in one area of your life and it's coming at tremendous cost to other areas of your life. And I realized that, over the course of about 20 years, day in, day out, exercising that passion and working, work actually started consuming me. And so I got on the verge of burnout. My life was, tremendously imbalanced. I had so many passions in life, rock climbing and, traveling, being outdoors, spending more time with loved ones. And I was kind of compromising them because I was constantly tethered to work, especially as I got to more senior positions. And so I started researching, how can I actually counter this problem where I'm so consumed by work and I have other things, but I feel like I need to be present at work more than other areas of my life. And to be honest, I couldn't find a one-stop shop solution for this. I had piecemeal trainings, leadership development and, mindfulness practices and other similar trainings, which are phenomenal. But they didn't give me the solution that I was looking for. It's like, okay, if I adopt these principles, they will kind of unstick me from the rut that I was in. And so that was kind of my journey to positive psychology. I figured if I understood how we as humans function fundamentally at a very basic psychological level, what are our motivations and our drivers? What gives us meaning in life? Then I'd be able to come from a more informed understanding and kind of unstick myself from that rut. And so that was one thing that got me there. Sorry, a bit of a long-winded answer, but
no, that's
just one. Yeah,
exactly what I was asking. So that's
yeah.
great.
So that was one. And then the other thing was I found that the favorite part of my job was actually managing people. And I remember having peers of mine, and they would say, oh my God, I've got a team meeting today, and I've got one-on-one meetings with my direct reports, etc. And they would kind of dread it because they'd be more passionate about other areas of their work. But me, I would really look forward to talking to them. And very quickly it became my favorite part of my job, to have development conversations with my colleagues, with my team members, talk to them about the culture of the organization. And so I figured, how could I combine both of these things together, where I help people develop and become better versions of themselves, personally as well as professionally, and also at the same time help unstick themselves from these ruts that they get stuck in, so consumed by work that it's causing imbalance or burnout in their lives. And so what I eventually ended up doing is, going back to school, studying positive psychology, quitting my job so that I can do this on a full-time basis. And that's what One Extraordinary Life is all about. It's how to help people avoid things like burnout, create more balance, and live happy and fulfilled lives and be resilient in life.
That's great. And when did you actually create One Extraordinary Life?
Yeah, so I started in 2015, but my journey to create that company started as early as 2008. That's when I started retooling myself and upskilling myself in this other area, which is completely different than finance and technology, which was my specialty up until that point. And so I started getting different facilitation, workshop facilitation certifications, coaching certifications, etc. But all of that up until 2015 is, it led to me quitting my job cold, saying, okay, I've found another passion in life that I think will allow me more balance and allow me to honor the values that are important to me.
Cool, I love that. And so your group, you've got the web page and the Facebook page, and you got a group as well, right?
Yeah, so I have a group. It's a Facebook group. It's called Positive Psychology for Professionals. Beat burnout, find balance, and invite happiness to your life. And so I'm in the process of launching that group, and that would be the main platform that I'm going to use to impart my knowledge, experience, and kind of create a community similar to what you have here, like-minded individuals. Such as yourself, Curtis. It will be an opportunity to collaborate and have this community where we can all learn from each other. So this is specifically designed for working professionals.
Cool, that's awesome. That's, like you mentioned, when I started the Success, Motivation, Inspiration group, that's a huge thing for me. I was actually going through brain cancer. I'd been given 60 to 90 days to live, and pushed through that, started a retail store and some different things. And as we're going along, I started that How to Be Successful group just kind of as a, Success, Motivation, Inspiration, kind of to start collaborating with like-minded individuals. And I remember having a goal to get my first 500 members of the group. And we actually took, when we reached 1,000 members, I had a couple of retail stores, and we took our entire staff, the entire team out to a big pizza party and to celebrate 1,000 members, because we were working so hard in the little retail stores to get people to join the group. And
sure.
Now there's days when we gain 3,000 members in a day, and it's like, it's kind of an average day, but
that's quite phenomenal. That's what a great accomplishment. And would you say that you let me ask my question differently than how I was going to ask it. Would you have been motivated to start this group and do this work had you not gone through the journey that you went through with your illness and the timeline that you were given?
So for me, I had been probably 20 plus years here. I've been reading 6 books a week. A month on how to win friends and influence people, success through a positive mental attitude, different motivational books. And so I always, we get to go to some of the seminars and stuff, and I've always enjoyed surrounding myself with positive people. But I think I still would have. It just would have been like all the other Facebook groups where you've got some guy that just randomly throws up a success group just because seemed like a good idea that day. But it really turned into a good opportunity with being able to have some struggles to go through so that you could connect with the other folks that are dealing with similar stuff.
Yeah, and the reason for asking that is, and this will give you a good sense of positive psychology, is, when we go through a struggle like this, oftentimes, we find ourselves in a traumatic state, for lack of a better term. And the extreme of this is post-traumatic stress disorder, for example. You've gone through a really challenging experience and it impacts you emotionally, mentally, and it could have some really long-lasting impacts, post-traumatic stress disorder. However, there's another opposite side of that spectrum. And there's some phenomenal research on this in the field of positive psychology, and it's called post-traumatic growth. Right.
Yep.
And hearing your story, Curtis, that's the idea that comes to mind, is you're a good exemplar of post-traumatic growth, because the common thing between post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic growth is the trauma. And so how do you cope with that? And for some people, it can lead to growth of some kind, and for other people, it cannot. And so what are those characteristics that allows us to grow when we face these challenges and hurdles in life? It's really important to consider those things and look at our challenges as opportunities for growth. So, yeah, it's really inspiring to hear your story as well.
So quick question for you on that is, the folks that we're all going to go through something terrible in our life. Yeah. Most of us don't realize it. You go through life, everything's good, and you kind of assume that everything's just going to always be good. But to prepare for that terrible time, that whether it's a loss of a loved one, a divorce, a major accident, injury, whatever.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me was reading those books just on a continual basis, forever, always trying to improve and become successful. But what's kind of what advice would you give our audience for, if their life is going good right now, they don't really feel like they need to be studying success books or positive stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for our audience on that, or?
I do indeed. I think it's people who are known to be resilient, especially when they're hit with a challenging circumstance. What the research shows is that oftentimes they have been doing things throughout their lives that actually prepare them to become more resilient. And something as simple as, in the emotional space, for example, expressing gratitude. Right? It's seemingly a really simple task, Curtis, right? But expressing gratitude makes us grateful for the things that we have. And then that sets in motion a mindset, a way of thinking, and a way of being, so that, even the simplest thing, a glass of water over here, I'm grateful that I can take a sip of this glass of water because, there might be a drought or something might happen. And so I'm grateful for this right now. What happens is, if we start accumulating when times are good, when we start accumulating these moments of joy, these moments of gratefulness, these moments that life is good for me, these thought processes that, I have a role to play in the fact that my life is good.
The majority of that comes from your personal decision
absolutely.
to be happy.
And also, even though there might be some minor things that might be going wrong, the majority of my life is actually good. I have relationships in my life. I have a job, for example, or I have meaningful pursuits in my life. So when we talk about a good life and we're not faced with challenges, those are the typical things that we have. I'm accomplishing goals in my life. I have moments of positive emotions in my life. And so I have engaging activities that I can indulge in. And so when we start thinking about those things, it prepares us for a future where, if a hurdle is hit, we're prepared for it. And here's how we're prepared for it. We start developing the sense that the majority of my life up until this point has actually been good. It hasn't been that bad. because we've been counting our blessings. We've been grateful for it. We've been savoring those moments. And we can compare ourselves to a previous moment, and that could give us the confidence to propel ourselves and overcome that hurdle in the future. So the simple way of thinking about this is via a really simple model, and I call this the C model, SEA, right? And it starts with a satisfied mind. When times are good, if we have a satisfied mind, if we can cultivate the thoughtfulness and the thoughts that, okay, why is life good? So right now, having this conversation with you is phenomenal. I'm really enjoying myself. I'm grateful for this. So thanks for the opportunity, by the way, right? And so I'm satisfied right now. I'm feeling good about this. But I won't enjoy that moment if I don't take a step back and think about it, right? And so that's a satisfied mind. The second thing is, we enable ourselves. The E in the model is enabled emotions. We enable ourselves with the emotions, right? So right now I'm feeling positive emotions, feeling joy, excitement a little bit, contentment. And so I'm savoring this opportunity. I mentioned it to you, and hopefully that will have a contagion effect. Other people will see that, once they see this recording or live streaming, etc. And so enabled emotions, how are we taking stock of the emotions that we're feeling? And then the last ones are the actions. That's the A in the C model, the actions that activate us in a manner that's taking us towards a goal. And so times are good. I am relying on my strengths when times are bad, because I know times have been good for me. They were good for me because I have the wherewithal, the resourcefulness to cope. And so these times are temporary. They're not going to last forever. This challenging time is not going to last forever. I can bring my resourcefulness to the table and act in a certain manner. And that's where goal setting comes in. I'm going to act and do these 3-4 things. COVID has struck us. So, okay, how am I going to work? I'm going to buy a camera, buy a microphone, and I'm going to coach and train using Zoom now, instead of, sitting down saying, oh my God, the world has come crumbling down over me. And so those are some of the tips that I would give someone.
I absolutely love that. And when you mentioned the, choosing to be happy, that just brings me to think of, there's all of us know somebody that for the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years, we've been watching them on Facebook, or, they're always posting about, something just happened terrible, and this is why their life is so bad, and why does this happen to me, and why me, kind of a mentality. Yeah. And I just had one a couple of days ago here that reached back out, needing some help. And this has been 10 years I've known this person, just not a close relationship. But again, asking, when we'd met, they were way better off financially than I was.
Right.
And, I think I was driving a $300 junker car and stuff. And so it's been a few years, but the thing still is, there was the same complaints during this conversation about, the terrible boss, the bad attitude, the headaches, the whatever, This has been 10 years of deciding to be unhappy. And this person has got a great life. I mean, most of us would trade lives right away with this person. And doesn't matter. I mean, they could win the lottery tomorrow and they're going to be really upset about having to pay the taxes on it. So I love that you mentioned about just choosing to be happy, and whether you've got, multiple amputations, some kind of a terrible problem you're fighting through, or if you've got a pretty good life, look at the good stuff. And it's great advice.
Absolutely. And, it's supported by research as well. 2 researchers, Shelley Gable and Jonathan Haidt, did some research a few years ago. And typically in the US, an average US citizen has about 3 positive experiences. The ratio is 3:1. 3 more positive experiences to every negative experience on a typical day, right? And so, however, many, especially working professionals, we choose to focus on the one negative experience that's happened. And, a lot of that is because we have this negativity bias, right? So our mind takes us that way. So we sometimes have to exert a little extra effort to hunt for that positive stuff. And that my advice is, once you find it, savor it, talk to other people about it, express it, think about it. What went well today, right? One of the phenomenal exercises that research has shown, really cultivates optimism and that style of thinking where, there is good in my life. And so if we learn to recognize that there's good in my life right now, number one, you'll learn to recognize good in all circumstances, even in the worst of circumstances. But then also you can use that comparison to uplift yourself and in a challenging situation to move towards a good or better circumstance in the future when you're in a challenging situation. And I like what you said about, choosing to be happy. Different people have different economic statuses. Sometimes we blame circumstances, right? I'm not economically successful, financially successful, for example. But the research shows that while there is a small role that circumstances play in one's happiness in life, there is a lot more that is within us that creates happiness. That's why you can have the car, you can have the house, you can have all of the material things, but that won't necessarily generate happiness. And that's why you can find, some of the happiest countries, some of the happiest people on earth might not be necessarily as wealthy as the average citizen here in the US. And so there is a lot that's within us that cultivates happiness.
I love that. I often speak with people like you're talking about the Zoom calls. Talk with folks from Nigeria and different parts of Africa or different parts of India that are extremely impoverished. And we did an interview one night. The guy was using a flashlight he had the last set of D batteries, and so he was trying to prioritize. Going, is this interview worth more than whatever else was going on? So we talked for a minute as he's sitting in the dark. And so he decided, yes, this interview is going to be worth it. Put the batteries in the flashlight, turned it on. Had to rip an old sock and hang his sock over the front of the what's called the flashlight lens to diffuse the light. But he's recording on an old cell phone, using a flashlight as his his backlight set up there. So you and I were just talking before the meeting got started here about, we've got all these the softbox lighting setups and the whole professional lighting thing and all this. And this guy was so happy that his batteries on the D batteries on this old flashlight hadn't gone down because he had a chance to do this interview with what he felt like was the perfect lighting there. And I was going, man, we've got and we can get bummed out. Oh, one of my bulbs went out or something. And feel like, why does this happen to me? And this guy's using his last two batteries to try to get on the interview. So,
there is, this concept in psychology. It's called mental contrasting. And oftentimes when we seek something in life, right, we contrast ourselves upwards, right, with someone who's better than us. So, I aspire to be like that. As long as that's motivating you to do something good and positive with your life, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But during challenging times, especially, I think it's good to contrast yourself with two things. First, someone who is less than you in terms of accomplishment or whatever you're trying to achieve in those challenging times. So like you mentioned, if my bulbs went out today, now by virtue of this example that you gave me, that's an image, and you painted such a great image with the sock and everything, right? So that's going to come to mind. And I'm like, well, at least I'm better off than that. At least I've got some light. Even if my softboxes went off, at least I have, the normal bulbs, right? And so that will give me some gratefulness, going back to the tip that I mentioned earlier, to be grateful for what you have, even in the most challenging of circumstances. So that's one comparison. A downwards comparison, I think, helps. And then secondly, compare yourself to a previous version of yourself. And that's likely to do two things. Number one, it will show you how you have transitioned and become hopefully a better version of yourself. And you can draw from previous experiences. What challenges have you experienced in the past? I work with a lot of doctors, physicians, residents in training, surgeons in particular. And oftentimes the young residents in intern year, they're put through the ringer. It's a very challenging year. And when I coach them, they say, oh my God, it's so challenging. Our schedules, are so crazy, and I'm not getting enough sleep, et cetera, and I'm not sure if I'm accomplishing anything. And when they say something like that, I actually stop them and I say, really, tell me, have you really not accomplished anything? And then they start thinking. I say, okay, tell me what you learned from day one. Now it's month 6 for you.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you are better off? You've learned more than day one. And they think and they say, oh my God, yeah, you're right. I've learned so much. I'm trusted to consult with, patients or diagnosis. I'm much better. And, I'm so much better in so many other procedural elements, etc. And so comparing to a past version of ourselves and seeing what we have overcome is very, very powerful in terms of contrasting ourselves to our previous version. And then, like I said earlier, with a downwards comparison is also helpful in a challenging situation.
That's awesome. That's great advice. And you talked about being grateful. One of the things that's helped me out a lot, when I get up in the morning beside my bed, I've got the whiteboard. On the left-hand side is a list of what I'm grateful for. I mean, it's a big whiteboard, and I make sure it's filled up. So what I'm grateful for on the left side, what I need to get done on the right side. And so I go through each day and, got I'll wipe out that list and rewrite the list.
Wow.
And when I've got time, if I can get up early and take a walk before my first meeting, I'll go through that meeting or through that walk and try to say at least 100 things that I'm grateful for. So the first day I remember, getting to 10, it had been, I had kind of a train wreck of a week. And, well, I'm gonna figure out 10 things that I'm grateful for.
Sure.
I'm thinking, life sucks. There's nothing going on. Pretty soon you get into about number 7 or 8, thinking you'll never be able to reach 10. And then as you've got in that mindset, you start going, man, I'm hearing the birds chirping. I'm grateful for that. Thanks, God. Kind of a and it's so much easier from that very first day to figure out how to really channel that positive thought there. So.
It's so important. Let me give you an example. Just the other day, I live in the suburbs of Philadelphia and just outside of Philadelphia. And so the weather was really nice. So I opened the windows instead of having the air conditioning on. And the crickets were, creating their sound. I don't know what you call that, by the way. I have to look that up. But anyway, the sound of the crickets, I could hear that at night. And I thought to myself, I can hear these crickets. It's a little bit in the distance, so it wasn't right on top of me, the sound, but it seemed really nice, actually. It was really nice. And I found myself imagining, what would the night be like without the sound of the crickets or without any sound? And that made me think, what would nature be like without sounds of birds? Right? Without the sound of the wind going through the trees and the, ruffling of the leaves that sound creates. And it would be really weird. And so that just instilled in me this gratefulness for crickets, right?
That's awesome.
As I'm falling asleep. So when we count our blessings, when we think about things that went well with us, we learn to appreciate these small things as well as these big things. And so I always say, don't just appreciate the big things. They don't have to be grandiose. They can be small things as well. And sometimes we take them for granted. But if we don't, it prepares us. So, going back to your earlier question, what can we do when times are good to prepare us for when times are challenging? That's one of the things we can do, is learn to appreciate the smaller things and be grateful for them.
I love that. Man, I'm glad to be talking with you here. I should probably be paying for this session as like a counseling thing. I know we've got a whole lot of folks able to watch us on the live stream, but this has been really beneficial. Just feeding off of your positivity here for a while.
Oh, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for the opportunity, and maybe we can chat again. I'd welcome that opportunity. This is awesome, Curtis.
Cool. Sounds good. And I was just going to see, so I'm still looking through this ridiculous list of accomplishments you've got here, and you've made it real difficult to, put a book jacket kind of a summary to highlight the things you've done great, because there's this ridiculous huge list that I'm never going to be able to cover everything. But Yeah, it's been pretty cool looking at, the things that you've accomplished, and especially that you made the decision to help try to improve people's lives and be positive rather than just focusing on the money. So you can tell with your demeanor, that's probably a big reason why you're so happy, huh?
I appreciate that. Yes. It was a conscious decision, and a realization that I need to honor the things that are valuable to me. And, unfortunately, as much as I liked my work, that was compromising a lot of it. And the most important thing for me was my autonomy, the autonomy to make decisions, to have my own time, to have the ability to do the things that I was passionate about, including my work. And so, how could I blend the two together became my mission, and that's what I do now. Is helping people develop, become more engaged, fulfilled, and resilient in life.
That's awesome. And do you speak and teach? I know you speak more than one language, Hindi and English, and
Yeah.
a few different languages.
Yeah,
Do you
Urdu,
teach
which
another
is the
language?
language of Pakistan. So I was born and raised in England. My heritage is from Pakistan, and the language of Pakistan is called Urdu, and it sounds exactly like the language of India, which is Hindi. They both used to be one country about 70 years ago, and so they sound the same, but they're written differently.
Okay.
So I consider myself fluent in both of those languages. And yeah, and as far as teaching, so I am assistant instructor in the Masters of Applied Positive Psychology program at the University of Pennsylvania, and that kind of keeps me in touch with what's cutting edge in terms of positive psychology, the practice of it, and the application of it in organizations. That's something that I do on the side, in addition to running One Extraordinary Life. So yeah, thank you for asking.
Cool. That's awesome. Man, I'm glad again to have you on. What is the best way to get a hold of you? I know we've got your Facebook page or your Facebook profile there in the link, but what's the
Yeah.
best way to reach you?
Yeah, the Facebook page would be a good way to reach me, and then oneextraordinarylife.com, the number one, and then extraordinary life, all one word, number one, extraordinarylife.com. You can reach me through there as well. And then, if you want to email me, that's always welcome as well. Faisal, F as in Frank, AI, S as in Sam, AL, Faisal at oneextraordinarylife.com. Be happy to be in touch with folks and help in any way I can.
Cool. That's awesome. Thanks again for being a guest today, and we'll have to do a follow-up talk again soon here.
I appreciate it, Curtis. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thanks a lot
Thanks.
for the opportunity. Take care.
Thank you.